Welcome to episode 1 of Egg to Egg. Today we're going to talk about things you need to consider when you're getting ready to have a backyard flock. And we've got 4 things that we need to consider. 1 is why you want chickens. 2, what are your city ordinances? 3, space. 4, time and money. So the first one we're going to talk about is why do you want your chickens? Why do you want chickens in your backyard? A lot of people recently have started doing backyard chickens kind of out of fear. They've gone out and bought chicks and they have no idea what they're doing at that point. But it's not a bad thing to want chickens, to want to be a little bit more self-reliant. I got chickens, one, because we kind of love animals and I knew I'd like to have chickens, but mostly for eggs. We want to be able to produce our own eggs, know what they're being fed and where they're coming from, and also be able to store them longer. Store-bought eggs do not last very long, whereas when you do your own eggs, they last a lot longer because you don't have to put them in the fridge right away. And we'll talk about that in our egg storage episode. Another reason people keep chickens is for meat. You can raise chickens specifically for meat, and we've done that, and it's an interesting process. Not my favorite, but I know I can do it. I know that if I needed meat, I have chickens that I could use for meat and be that much more self-reliant. Another reason people would like chickens is just for pets. There are chicken breeds out there that were bred specifically to be pets. We own some, and so we will be talking about those different breeds and how you take care of them and how to make them a really, really good pet. Some people don't know why they want chickens, so it's a very good thing to explore. Why do I want to have a backyard chicken flock? And there's tons of other reasons. You know, everybody is individual about why they want to do it. I'm more practical. I'd like to be able to have eggs. I want to be able to sell eggs. I want to breed chickens now, and I want to be able to sell those chickens so other people can enjoy these different breeds that I enjoy so much. Some people would like to provide an experience for their children to have responsibility, and chickens are actually a really great way to do that, and they're actually, I think, easier than dogs, though they may take a little bit more time than a dog or a cat. And we'll talk about that when we talk about breeds and the different kinds of breeds that do make really good pets. The second thing to consider is also your local laws and ordinances. In our city, there are certain ordinances for chickens, and so we're restricted on numbers. But because we're rural, it's not as big of a deal. We can have roosters, and we can have several hens, and we can lay eggs, that kind of thing. We can even breed. In other cities, most cities, especially if they're very urban, will not allow rooster for probably obvious reasons. Roosters crow in the morning, early in the morning. Ours will start at 4:30 and go until like 5:30, and so neighbors don't necessarily like that. Now if you're in a neighborhood where they do, well, you just got to pay attention to your local ordinance. Cities don't like roosters, and if you get people complaining, you will get a fine and have to destroy your roosters or rehome them. The other thing is the amount of chickens. I know I was looking it up for my mother-in-law to see if they could have chickens where they were, and the old ordinance said that they could have a certain amount of chickens for the amount of acreage that they had. And so she could have up probably to 6 chickens for the amount of acreage that they were living on, where they're at in Oregon. So those are very important things to think about. Oftentimes people do get away with having more chickens than they're supposed to. People will often get away with having a rooster. It just depends on your neighbors and if they complain. If you want to get the ordinance changed in your area, because I have heard of places where they won't even allow chickens because they think they're smelly and stinky and noisy. And they can be if they're not taken care of properly. So if you'd like to see those changed in your particular area, then you need to get involved with your city council and work on getting it so that you can have backyard chickens in your area. Even if it's just the hens without roosters, at least you can get the eggs. Step 3 would be how much space do you have? Do you have space to maybe have 3 or 4 chickens? Or do you have space to have a huge flock? A lot of people just want to have eggs for their family. They're not worried about selling them, they're not worried about breeding. So that would include coop space and run space. Coops, they say for chickens, you need 2 to 4 square feet per chicken in the coop. Now that can be adjusted because those chickens aren't using that whole 2 or 4 feet of space, but it really also depends on the size of your chickens. If you just have little bantam sort of chickens, they're half-size chicken, then you don't need as much coop space. If you have big giant chickens like a Brahma or even an Orpington, they're a standard size chicken and you will need to have a bigger amount of space. A run space also needs to be big enough for your chickens to be able to get the exercise they need and to provide space for food and water. So you're going to want to consider all of these things as you look into what do I need for my chickens to have backyard chickens. Also, part of that space is, do you have enough space to maintain your chicken coops? Are you going to be able to get around your chicken coop and maintain it? Are you going to be able? Do you have a space to store feed and the tools that you need to maintain your chickens? So that's also something you need to consider when looking at the amount of space that you have. The fourth consideration for preparing for your backyard flock, something to consider, is do you have enough time and money to take care of these chickens? Now, chickens have a relatively large initial expense. Coops are not cheap. Sometimes you can get really lucky and have somebody give you one. That's what happened to us. They gave us a coop and then we've built several others. The ones we've built from scrap wood, from reclaimed wood, wood that was sold like on Facebook Marketplace. And even with all of that, it still cost us about $300 to build those coops. And then I got a plan to do a really nice coop, and it has cost about $1,000 to do that one. So the smaller your flock, the less expensive your coop will be. And that is a definite consideration. The initial investment in housing, so the coop and the run, the initial investment of food and all the things, food and grit and the things that your chickens are going to need to help keep them healthy. Once you have that all established, if you can make that initial investment, chickens are relatively inexpensive to keep. I know for a flock of 4 chickens, you could get a 50-pound bag of feed and it would probably last you 2 months. And for me, a 50-pound bag of feed costs about $15. So it's not hugely expensive to keep the chickens once you've made that initial investment. The other investment that you're going to want to make is in time. Do you have the time it takes to make sure the coops are cleaned out, that the chickens are being fed promptly and every day? And if you want docile chickens, are you making sure that you have the time to sit and pet your chickens and talk to your chickens, give them some treats? It's amazing what little treats and even holding them for just a little while every day can do. But time is an investment for these chickens. Not a ton of time. Chickens are pretty good on their own, but you do need to take the time to make sure that their coop is maintained properly and that you're checking them for any health issues they may have, and on a regular basis. So these are all things that you should consider before deciding on getting your own flock of chickens. We're grateful that you've joined us on this first episode of Egg to Egg, what to consider for your backyard flock, and we hope you'll join us next time. Bye-bye. Oh, what do you think? What do you think, sister? Huh? What do you think? You okay?